three ways you can stand in the gap. And of course, we can talk about so many more, but let's just talk about the three ones that are really, really powerful. One, we've already kind of talked about when I was talking about the people praying for Trump and things like that, is prayer, right? Intercessory, right? That type of praying for someone who you love. You can pray for someone who you can love from afar, right? You can intercede and pray, and that won't be so taxing on you, right? Just going back to what Maya said, because I think it's important, right? You don't want to stand into the gap to the point that you are now drained and it is damaging your soul, your sanity, your peace, right? So prayer is one way you can stand in the gap for your partner, and also someone who you know because of how they are and the way that you guys cannot harmonize, that you need to pray for them from afar, right? And that won't tax you. So that's one. Two is, of course, serve. That's why I say you want to ask, can I serve you, for a lifetime, this person who you're with? Service, right, in many different ways. Nikhil brilliantly, eloquently, in my opinion, stated all of the ways, not all of them, some of the ways, because I'm sure he serves in so many different greater capacities as well, of how he protects his wife to be, and nurtures her. And her development is to let her know that I care and I'll nurture your well-being, your spirit, your emotion. And that can come up in many different ways, right? That can come up with me, in intimate ways, whether it's me hugging you, loving on you in different ways, but it also can come up on me having the hard conversations with you that I know that is, for the betterment of your growth, and knowing that I can have it with you and give you this truth and layer it with love and know that you can feel that with love and receive it, and then, improve upon whatever needs to be improved upon and grow, right? So service, that's another way that you can stand in the gap for your partner. And third one, which I think is really great, is difficult for many of us. I can definitely say it was a difficult walk for me, and at times can still be challenging, right? Which is to be vulnerable. It goes back to the definition I gave you guys in the beginning, just so that people could have like an understanding of what standing in the gap means. One of them that I gave was to expose oneself for the protection of something, right? To expose oneself for the protection of something or someone, right? And I love this because that's what vulnerability is, right? Is an exposing of yourself, to get to the authentic you, right? We had, I don't know how many shows ago, but we were talking about the unbecoming, right? Life is about unbecoming, and kind of stripping yourself of the conditioning that you may have taken on, and to get to who the real you are. And I think one of the greatest gifts that we can have here, in the process of developing relationships with people who we hold dear and near to us, is that we can expose ourselves fully to that person or those people in our lives, with no judgment, and and be okay. Because no matter what it is that we're exposing, they always let us know or reaffirm that I really see. No matter what you just told me or what you went through or what you're going through currently, I see who you truly are, in the light of love, in the light of God. So those are three ways that we can stand in the gap for our partners, out of many, of course. There are many others. But those are some of the ways, just in case you guys were thinking of some or questioning, like, I'm wondering, how can I? But definitely wanted to kind of double back and talk about that, because I thought what Maya brought up was good. And I don't want people to definitely leave this conversation saying, Sharla said, stand in the gap, I'm when I'm introducing, these principles, they're never void of taking the necessary time and moment to measure your capacity to do it, and or measuring your openness and willingness, even if you feel like I haven't arrived at the capacity yet, that I can still be open and willing, though, that, okay, I can pull on, I can call on heaven, or I can call on God to help facilitate this. I'm willing. I'm willing to come forward to stand in the gap. And I think that's really what the core message is, just taking it from where it comes from biblically. That's what it means. It means like God's looking down, he's looking at to see if I can find someone who will stand in the gap, stand for truth. Like if the culture is going this way, will this person say, you know what? No. I know this and that one is saying this, but this is what, reigns supreme, or this is what God's truth is. And I think it's important because, in again, as I said, in relationships, we go through so many different seasons, and man, life's as we all know, and challenges occur, and we can choose to either face those challenges, and rise to the occasion, or retreat, depending on where we are. But in those times when we are going through that, there might be times where your partner is at a weak moment, and needs strength. And those are in those times is where we stand in the gap, for them. And I think it's important because sometimes we can get into a mind state where it's like, well, no, like I didn't sign up for this. I want you to consistently be this, and you're not being consistently this. So, I'm not really feeling like standing the gap for, for you in that. So standing in the gap, right? What comes along with that is grace, is mercy, is forgiveness. And those things are not always so easy to do, especially when we have to be the ones to pour out and extend it. Now, let me tell you, on the other end, somebody giving us the grace and mercy and forgiveness, and I guess depending on who you are, some people, it's hard for them to receive, love or service when other people are giving it to them because they're used to being the server. So I can understand that. But most of the times, most of us, can be like, okay, yeah, give me the forgiveness, give me the grace, give me the mercy. But when you have to be the one, oh man, not always easy to do. I think we're coming out of the stage of where everything is kind of like, okay, what are you going to do for me? These are my expectations. It's all about, the season of selfishness. I really do think that's kind of what I feel like was ushered in the whole culture of like, do what you feel. It doesn't matter whether it's truthful or fact. That's kind of what it brought in, where people were just kind of anchored in their own selfishness. And I'm happy to kind of seeing it pivoting a little bit more now to where, I think the reasoning of people, and I think at the end of the day, and you guys can let me know, those who are still listening, still on, is that I think the most meaningfulness that you get out of life is when you live for something bigger than yourself. For many of people that are believers, that is, right, believing in Christ or believing in God. For others, maybe it might be their family, or, maybe it be a greater vision that they have. But I think life can can feel like you're navigating drudgery, through the heaviness of it all. I think, and mind you, there's a lot of levity in life, but I do think that the levity comes from anchoring yourself in something that's greater than you. Because if not, then the moments do feel very fleeting, you know? So I think that's why this conversation is important, because in order for you to stand in the gap for someone or something, you have to be anchored in. You have to think of something that is higher than yourself. You have to kind of be fueled by making the impact that is beyond yourself. And so how do you get there if culture and society is putting out that no, it's what your expectations are. Are they mean your expectations? What is just I, you know, and kind of highlighting, effectual or continual selfishness as something that is going to bring the most pleasure and enjoyment in your life, when it's not really true. It runs out of gas fast. That's what I'll say. That type of life runs out of gas really, really fast. And then when you run out of gas, it's either it runs out of gas fast, or it crashes, and burns. Honestly. But if you're living a life where the things that you're doing, it's greater, it's greater, it's beyond yourself. You want to serve something beyond yourself, then you get a lot of lasting meaningfulness out of life. And you make such a great impact that who you are in your existence and the remembrance of you gets etched in time, to where people are echoing, how you served and the things that you did way beyond, way after, right? You transcend, and you leave your physical earthly body, leaves this place. And when you are thinking about, standing in the gap for your spouse, for the people that you love, for the people that you don't love, but because you know the truth, and because of that, you still do what you know is right, even in the midst of darkness and chaos and things like that.